Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are doing something that I think is absolutely essential for anyone who wants to understand how organizations actually function.
Hmm.
I mean, not just in theory, but in the messy, complex, real world.
Right.
We are rolling up our sleeves and heading straight into the engine room.
I like that analogy.
We're looking at a topic that, on the surface might sound a bit dry.
It can sound a little, yeah, a little oppressive even.
Exactly. It sounds like someone's standing over your shoulder with a clipboard just watching every single move you make.
It definitely has a bit of a PR problem, doesn't it? The word control rarely gives people a warm and fuzzy feeling.
It really doesn't. And that's
You're
the
right.
word. We are
Ah,
talking about control.
the big C.
Specifically, we are diving deep into the CIMA E2 syllabus, Chapter 5, Controlling Performance, Part 1. Now, before you tune out thinking this is just about, red tape, micromanagement, filling out forms, and triplicate,
Which is what everyone pictures.
it is. Let me just stop you there. The sources we have for this session are, honestly, they're fascinating. We aren't just reading rules, we are looking at the fundamental psychology of how you get human beings to do what they are supposed to do.
Yeah, what actually makes people tick in a work environment?
We're looking at the legal minefields of firing people, and we're looking at the invisible force of culture. It's huge.
It is a massive topic.
Yeah.
And you're right, control is such a loaded word.
Mm.
But in the context of CIMA E2 and, organizational management, it's not about stifling people.
No.
It is the mission-critical system that keeps the ship from hitting the iceberg. I mean, without control, you don't really have a business.
What do you have then?
You just have a group of people hanging out, burning cash.
Exactly. So our mission today is pretty clear. We want to help you, whether you're a student prepping for the E2 exam or maybe a manager trying to wrangle a team to really analyze these performance management systems.
To see the mechanics behind it.
Yes, to move from the theory to the reality of how organizations actually stay on track.
And we have a lot of ground to cover. I mean, this is a comprehensive look at Chapter 5. We are going to be starting with the why of control,
The philosophy?
the philosophy behind it exactly.
Yeah.
Then we'll move into the how, like, what are the tools? Things like setting targets with management by objectives.
NBO, yeah.
And finally, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of the legal frameworks, safety, discipline, and even dismissal.
And we've got a stack of great sources here to pull
We're a
from.
really good mix.
Yeah, we're pulling from BPP study notes, Kaplan material, some classic Peter Drucker.
You have to have Trucker.
You have to. And even some case studies about the Eden Project and NATS, which we'll get to.
Which are great contrasting examples.
They really are. But let's start at the very top. When we say organizational control, what are we actually talking about? Because in my head, I am picturing a puppet master pulling strings.
That's a common image, and it's totally understandable, but it's not the academic definition we need for E2.
Mhm.
If we look at the definition provided by Lucy in our texts, control is simply the process of ensuring operations proceed according to plan.
That sounds much less sinister.
It is. It's just steering. And it is integrally linked to the role of a manager. You actually can't separate the two. If you are managing, you are controlling. It's part of the job description.
So if you have a shiny plan, a great strategy, but you never actually check if you're following it,
Then you aren't managing.
you're just, hoping.
You're just hoping. And as they say in the military, hope is not a strategy.
Right.
The big picture for this chapter is really moving from that high-level definition into the actual mechanics. And we have to cover the syllabus outcomes here.
Yes, let's be really clear for the students listening.
Specifically, the lead outcome is managing and controlling the performance of organizational units.
Right. That's the big goal. If you are a CIMA student, that is what you need to be able to demonstrate at the end of all this.
Precisely. And then underneath that, you have the component outcomes. These are things like the ability to recommend appropriate measures, understanding the control loop, which we'll get to shortly, and applying the statutory requirements for health, safety, and discipline.
So it's about having the toolkit.
It's about having the toolkit to actually execute the strategy, not just dream it up.
Okay, let's unpack this concept of control a bit more then. Section 5.1 in our outline is the purpose of organizational control. And I still think a lot of people, when they hear control system, they imagine that camera in the break room or a boss counting their keystrokes. Is it just micromanagement?
Ideally, no. In fact, I'd say micromanagement is actually a failure of control systems.
Oh, that's interesting. How so?
It's when the system is too tight or it's misapplied or it doesn't exist, so the manager feels they have to be the system. Real control is about the control loop. And you can think of it as a three-tiered system.
3 tiers, okay.
At the very, very top, you have strategic control.
That's the board of directors, the C-suite.
Exactly. They're setting the policies, corporate governance, the big vision.
The destination. We are going to Mars.
Precisely. That is the long-term horizon. Then, one level down, you have tactical or management control.
Middle management.
This is middle management. Their job is ensuring resources, people, money, equipment are used effectively to reach those big strategic goals.
So how do we build the rocket? Do we have enough aluminum? Are the engineers trained properly?
That's it, exactly. And then at the bottom, the third tier,
A day-to-day.
you have operational control. And that's the routine processing, the short-term decisions.
So ensuring the bolts are actually being tightened on that rocket seal.
Exactly. And ensuring the invoices are paid on time and the lights are on. It's the daily rhythm. But here's where it gets really interesting. And this is something the source material highlights that I think is kind of counterintuitive.
Go on.
There is often an inverse relationship between control and trust.
I saw that in the notes and I wanted to dig into it. And you'd think that a highly controlled environment is a good thing, implying high standards.
Right, that it's buttoned up and professional.
Yeah, but the text suggests that environments with fewer controls generally have higher levels of trust. That seems backwards.
It does, but think about it in a practical sense.
Mm-hmm.
If I trust you implicitly to do your job, to act in the company's best interest, and to use your judgment,
Then you just let me get on with it.
I don't need to stand over you. I don't need 20 forms for you to sign just to buy a stapler.
Right.
I trust you. The control is internal to you. Your professionalism, your ethics, that's the control.
But if that trust is weak?
Then I introduce controls, external controls. I monitor, I manage your performance tightly, I require signatures for everything, I put in checks and balances and audit trails.
So from a leadership perspective, you have this constant balancing act.
You do. You have to balance the cost of control because control is expensive, it takes time, it takes money, it takes emotional energy.
That's a really crucial point. Control isn't free.
Not at all.
Every report you ask someone to write is time they aren't spending doing the actual work.
No, it's not free at all. It's an overhead. And you have to weigh that cost against the benefits of building trust.
And there's another layer to this, which is something called goal congruence.
Yes.
Now, that sounds like MBA jargon. Let's break that down for the listener.
It's a bit jargon heavy, but the concept is simple and absolutely vital.
Okay.
It's the idea of linking that high-level strategy to individual performance. Because without a control system, organizations tend to develop what the text calls centrifugal tendencies.
Centrifugal, like a spinning force that pushes everything outward, away from the center.
Exactly. Imagine a company where everyone is just doing their own thing. They're all busy, they're all working hard.
They're all good people trying their best.
Sure. But the marketing team is running these amazing campaigns for products you don't actually have because they want to win a creative award.
Okay, I can see that.
And the engineers are building these really complicated features that nobody wants because they think the technology is cool.
Right.
And sales is promising delivery dates you can't possibly meet just to get their commission. Everyone might be working hard, they might be sweating, but they're all pulling in different directions.
It's chaos. Absolute chaos.
It's total chaos. And nothing gets achieved. Control creates a common focus. It integrates all these diverse activities so that what the individual wants to do
Winning their award, playing with new tech.
aligns with what the organization needs to do. Sell the products we actually have.
And that alignment, that's goal congruence.
That is goal congruence.
So control isn't just about stopping people from doing bad things. It's about making sure all the good things they're trying to do actually add up to something larger than themselves.
Perfectly put. It's the glue that holds the entire strategy together.
Okay, so we've established the why. We know we need control to avoid chaos and that centrifugal force, but how do we actually do it? This brings us to section 5.2, management by objectives, or MBO.
A classic. You cannot talk about management theory without hitting on MBO at some point.
This goes way back, right? We're talking about Peter Drucker.
1954. His book, The Practice of Management. And it's amazing how relevant it still is today.
It really is.
Drucker introduced MBO as a control strategy that was focused on outputs, not just inputs.
What's the difference?
Well, the old way of management was just shouting at people to work harder or faster. That's focusing on input, more hours, more sweat. Drucker realized that didn't work in the modern world where work was becoming more knowledge-based.
You needed something smarter.
You need to focus on the output, the result. You need targets.
And not just make more money. That's too vague.
Right. Drucker was very specific. He outlined 4 key areas where organizations need clear, time-bound targets. First, obviously, is profitability.
Sure. Table stakes?
If you aren't profitable, you aren't in business for long.
Check. Money matters.
Second is management performance. How well are your leaders leading? Are they developing their people? Are they hitting their own milestones?
So you measure the managers too.
You have to. Third is worker performance. Are the people on the ground efficient? Are they meeting quality standards?
Okay.
And fourth, and this was quite forward-thinking for 1954, is public responsibility.
That is interesting. So even back in the 50s, he was saying you can't just ignore your impact on the world.
Not at all.
You have a duty to the society you operate in.
Exactly. It touches on what we now call CSR, corporate social responsibility. He was way ahead of the curve. But the magic of MBO isn't just the targets themselves. It's the process.
How do you get there?
It's the process of how you set them. It's not a memo sent down from on high. It's a cycle, a conversation.
Okay, walk us through it. If I'm a manager implementing MBO with my team, what am I actually doing?
Step 1, clarify. Before you can do anything, the organization has to know its own high-level objectives. You can't set individual goals if the company doesn't know where it's going.
Right. If the strategy is just fog, the MBOs will be useless.
Completely. You need a North Star. Step 2, define. Now, this is the crucial leadership moment. The manager and the individual sit down and jointly define the individual's areas of responsibility.
Jointly. I'm seeing that word in the notes, and it feels like the key word here.
It is the most important word in the entire MBO philosophy. It's not, here are your targets, good luck with that.
No.
It's, okay, based on the company's goals, what do you think you can achieve? How does that fit with what we need?
So it's a negotiation, really.
It's a partnership. It's a conversation, which leads to step 3, which is agree. You agree on the key tasks and any performance improvement plans that might be needed.
Okay.
Then step 4, monitor. And this includes self-evaluation. The employee should be tracking their own progress against the goals.
So they have ownership.
Complete ownership. And finally, step 5 is review. You periodically, maybe quarterly, check performance against those agreed objectives.
I want to circle back to that jointly part. The text mentions a link to Herzberg here, Friedrich Herzberg, the motivation theorist. Why is that connection so important?
It's vital. Herzberg is famous for his two-factor theory. He argued that things like your salary, a nice office, safe working conditions, they're just hygiene factors.
Hygiene factors. What does that mean?
It means they stop you from being unhappy, but they don't necessarily motivate you to go the extra mile.
Right.
If I pay you $1 million to dig a hole and then fill it back up again every day, you'll do it, but you won't be passionate about it. You won't bring your best ideas to the hole digging.
But what does motivate people then, according to Herzberg?
Things like achievement, recognition, responsibility, and advancement. Those are the true motivators. And MBO taps directly into that.
Yeah.
When you participate in setting your own goals, you feel a sense of achievement when you hit them. You feel responsible for them. It gives you ownership.
It makes sense. If I tell you jump 5 feet, you might resent it. If we agree together that jumping 5 feet helps the team and you think you can do it, you'll try your hardest to clear that bar.
Because you said you would.
Yeah.
Exactly. It shifts the whole dynamic from one of compliance, I have to do this because my boss said so, to one of commitment. I want to do this because it's my goal.
And that brings us to the nature of the targets themselves. We can't talk about MBO without mentioning SMART targets. It feels like everyone knows the acronym, but hardly anyone actually uses it correctly.
It is the golden rule of target setting. Without it, MBO falls apart.
So let's just run through it for everyone. SMART.
Specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound.
Let's do a quick bad target versus good target exercise to make this practical for the listener.
Okay, here's a bad target I might give to a salesperson. Do a better job at sales.
That's terrible. What does better even mean? It's completely subjective.
Exactly. Does that mean be nicer to customers, sell more units, increase margin? Sales is vague.
It's useless for a reveal.
It's an argument waiting to happen. Now let's fix it using SMART. A good target would be increase sales of widget X by 5% within Q3.
Okay, let's test it. Specific. Yes, widget X. Measurable. Yes, 5%. Attainable. Well, hopefully that's based on historical data. Relevant. Yes, we sell widgets. And time-bound. Yes, by the end of Q3, it works.
Exactly. And now, at the end of Q3, the review stage of MBO becomes simple. It's just data. Did you hit the number or not? It removes the ambiguity and a lot of the emotion from the assessment.
Okay, so MBO gives us a framework for performance negotiation and setting the direction. But there's another layer of control that isn't about negotiation at all.
Not in the slightest.
It's about the law. This brings us to Section 5.3, Health and Safety Legislation.
And this is where we shift from "it would be nice if you did this" to "you must do this or you could face criminal prosecution."
So this is serious business.
All right.
And the big one here in the UK context, which is what CIMA focuses on, is the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974, HASAWA.
HASAWA is the cornerstone of UK health and safety law. It changed everything.
How so? What was it like before?
Before 1974, safety law was a real patchwork of specific rules for specific factories or industries. HASA brought it all under one big umbrella, and it's incredibly broad. It applies to every organization employing 5 or more persons.
Just 5. That's tiny.
Just 5. If you have 5 people on the payroll, you must have a written safety policy.
What if you have 4?
If you have fewer than 5, the law still applies to you. You still have to keep people safe, but you don't necessarily need the written policy document itself. But for exam purposes, you should always assume the written policy is required.
Good tip. And under this act, the employer has some very specific responsibilities. The sources call them the Big 5. I think it's worth going through these one by one because for a student, this is prime exam material.
Absolutely. You need to know these duties inside out.
Okay, what's number 1?
Number 1, provision of safe and risk-free plant and systems of work.
Plant here means machinery, right?
No.
Not a ficus in the corner of the office.
Correct. It means your heavy machinery, your computers, your vehicles, your tools. But it also covers systems of work.
What does that mean in practice?
It means the process itself shouldn't force people to take dangerous shortcuts. If the only way to unclog a machine is to climb inside it while it's still running because there's no other way, that's an unsafe system of work, even if the machine itself is fine.
Got it. So it's the hardware and the software of how we work. What's number 2?
Number 2, safety in the use, handling, storage, and transport of substances.
So chemicals, heavy loads, anything that moves or flows or could spill.
Right. You can't store the bleach next to the ammonia in the cleaning cupboard. You can't ask someone to carry a 100-kilogram box up a rickety ladder by themselves. You need clear protocols.
Okay, number 3.
Number 3, provision of information, training, instruction, and supervision. This is the one that so often gets ignored
Why do you think that is?
because it takes time and money.
Yeah.
But you can't just give someone a hard hat and say, good luck out there. You have to teach them how to stay safe. You have to show them the risks, and then you have to supervise them to make sure they're actually doing it.
That's a big one. I feel like a lot of accidents happen not because the machine was broken, but because the person just didn't know the risk.
Ignorance is a huge risk factor. And legally, under LESWA, ignorance is not a defense for the employer. It is your job to cure their ignorance through proper training.
Okay. Number 4.
Number 4, maintenance of a safe workplace. This includes making sure there's safe entry and exit.
So are the fire escapes blocked by a pile of old boxes? Is the floor slippery from a leak? Is the carpet torn so people might trip?
All of that, the basics.
The basics, but legally enforceable basics. And finally, number 5.
Number 5, provision of a safe working environment and adequate facilities. We're talking about heating, lighting, ventilation, and toilets.
You have a legal duty to provide a toilet.
You have a legal duty to provide a toilet and clean drinking water. You can't make people work in a freezing cold, dark room. It sounds obvious, but you'd be surprised what some employers try to get away with to cut costs.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting for me. I always thought safety was just the boss's job, but the notes say employees have duties too. It's not a one-way street.
Absolutely not. This was a revolutionary part of HASAWA. It made safety a two-way street.
So what are my duties as an employee?
You have a legal duty to take reasonable care of yourself and others. You can't just walk blindly into the path of a forklift and say, well, the boss should have stopped me.
Right. Personal responsibility plays a role.
A huge role. You also have to cooperate with the employer on safety matters. If the policy says you must wear goggles in this area and you refuse, you are in breach of your legal duty.
What else?
You must not intentionally or recklessly interfere with machinery. You can't disable the safety guard on a saw because it slows you down.
I've heard of people doing that.
It happens all the time. And finally, and this is important, you must inform the employer of any dangers.
The see something, say something principle.
Yes. This is crucial. If you see a loose wire hanging from the ceiling and you just walk past it, you are now part of the problem. You have a duty to report it.
That's empowering, in a way. It makes safety everyone's job, not just something that's done to you.
It does. And from a strategic analysis perspective, looking at it as an E2 student, safety isn't just about compliance and avoiding fines.
No.
It's a cost issue. Accidents are incredibly expensive. You've got lost time, potential lawsuits, investigation costs, higher insurance premiums, but it's also a reputation issue.
Nobody wants to buy from the company that's famous for hurting its workers. It just looks bad.
Exactly. It destroys brand value overnight. The source material also mentions this interesting concept of strangers.
Strangers. That sounds ominous. What does it mean?
It refers to people who aren't your regular employees but are on your site. So contractors, delivery drivers, visitors, maintenance crews.
The people who come in to fix the plumbing or install the new IT system?
Yes, they are strangers to your specific local hazards. You might know not to walk behind that specific machine because it swings out unpredictably, but they don't.
So they are at a much higher risk.
Much higher. So the strategic need for communication and control is heightened with them. You can't just wave them through reception. You need to induct them, explain the risks, maybe even escort them.
That's a great practical example.
Hmm.
Okay, moving on to section 5.4. We've set objectives with MBO. We've made the workplace safe with HASAWA. Now, how do we know if any of it is actually working?
We need a monitoring policy.
We need to check.
We are back to the cybernetic loop.
I love that word, cybernetic. It sounds like something from a sci-fi movie. The cybernetic loop initiated.
It does sound cool, but it actually comes from the Greek word Kubernetes, which means steersman or governor.
So it's about steering the ship.
It's about steering the ship. And the diagram for it is beautifully simple. Plan, do, PM, check, act.
And control is which part of that loop?
Control is primarily the check phase, which then leads directly into the act phase.
And to check, you need reports. You need data. You need information.
You do. But not just any reports. This is key. The text is very specific about the characteristics of good performance reporting. A data dump is useless. If I send you a 1,000-row spreadsheet every morning, have I informed you?
No, you've buried me. I'm just going to delete that email without even opening it.
Exactly. A good report must be accurate, obviously. It must be valid. It has to measure what it's actually supposed to measure. It must be reliable. And, crucially, it must be timely.
Right. If I find out today that we lost a huge amount of money 3 months ago, I can't fix it. It's just history at that point.
Exactly. Information has a shelf life, and for operational control, it's very short. The faster the feedback loop, the better the control.
What else makes a report good?
It must be provided to the person who is actually responsible and can do something about it. There's no point sending the detailed sales report to the engineering manager. They can't act on it. It's just noise to them.
And this all feeds into the review mechanism.
The feedback loop itself. If the actual results deviate from the plan, that's when control action is generated. The sources give a great, simple example from DHL.
Oh, yes, the delivery company. Everyone knows DHL.
Right, so DHL has a clear operational goal. Let's say 95% of packages delivered by noon the next day. That's the plan.
The do is pretty obvious. It's the delivery drivers working, driving the trucks, scanning the boxes.
The check is the local depot manager looking at the daily stats on their computer. Let's say they see the number for yesterday was only 90%. That's a deviation from the plan. The little light on their dashboard turns red.
So the act part is, what do they do?
The manager then has to analyze why. This is the critical thinking part of management. Was it a major traffic jam on the M25? Was it a shortage of drivers because of sickness? Was there a sorting error at the hub?
And the action depends on the cause.
Of course. If it was traffic, maybe you need to change the route for a few days. If it was a shortage of drivers, maybe you need to approve overtime or hire more people. That is the control loop in action. You see the problem, you find the cause, you fix it. You steer the ship back on course.
Simple, but incredibly effective when it works. Now, sometimes the deviation isn't about packages or numbers. It's about people behaving badly, breaking rules. Section 5.5 takes us into statutory procedures and the code of practice.
This is where managers often get scared. And to be honest, rightly so. Employment law is incredibly complex.
And easy to get wrong.
Very easy. There's a key distinction here we need to make clear for everyone listening. The difference between the law itself, what's statutory, and codes of practice, which are more like guidelines.
So breaking a code of practice isn't actually illegal. You won't go to jail.
Not directly, no. You won't go to prison for breaking a code of practice. But, and it's a very, very big buddy, but is the yardstick that employment tribunals use.
Okay, explain that.
We need to talk on ACS.
The Advisory, Conciliation, and Arbitration Service?
Yes. In the UK, ACAS provides a code of practice on disciplinary and grievance procedures. While that code is not a statute itself, if you end up in an employment tribunal because you fired someone, the judge will look at the ACS code, and if you didn't follow it, the dismissal will almost certainly be ruled unfair.
So it's effectively law for a manager. If you ignore it, you lose.
Effectively, yes.
Yeah.
Carries the weight of law in the outcome, if not in the strict legal definition.
So what are the key principles? What does ACA say we must do when we're disciplining someone?
It's all about fairness, transparency, and consistency. First, your procedures must be in writing. You can't just make it up as you go along. The employee needs to know the rules of the game before they start playing.
Okay, that makes sense.
Second, you have to deal with issues quickly. You can't discipline someone for something they did 6 months ago that you just ignored at the time. That's totally unfair.
Right. It's like bringing up old arguments in a relationship. It's not productive.
Not at all. Third, and this is massive, the right to be accompanied.
What does that mean?
If you are hauling someone into a formal disciplinary meeting, they have the legal right to bring a work colleague or a trade union rep with them. You cannot deny them that right.
That's a big one to remember for the exam. If a scenario says the manager refused to let the employee bring a friend, that's a huge red
A
flag.
huge red flag. An instant fail on the procedure. Also, no dismissal for a first breach of the rules, unless it is gross misconduct.
And gross misconduct is the really serious stuff.
Right. Punching a customer, stealing money from the till, burning down the warehouse.
Okay.
But for general performance issues or minor rule breaking, like being late a couple of times, you need a warning process. You can't just fire them on the spot.
And the final principle.
The right of internal appeal. If I decide to fire you, you must have the chance to appeal that decision to someone else in the company, usually someone more senior or from HR who wasn't involved in the original decision.
That seems like a lot of hoops to jump through, especially if someone has clearly done something wrong.
It is, but think about it from the other side. It protects the employee from a tyrant boss who just woke up on the wrong side of the bed and decides they don't like you. And actually, it protects the company from expensive lawsuits by ensuring they have a paper trail and can prove they followed a fair process.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 5.6, handling discipline. Because discipline isn't just about firing people, is it? Ideally, we don't want to get to that point.
No, absolutely not. Dismissal is the last resort. It's a failure of the system. The host in our source material makes a great distinction between positive discipline and negative discipline.
Go on.
Positive discipline is about aiding safety in task completion. It's coaching. It's proactive. It's saying, hey, just a reminder, please wear your hard hat because we don't want you to get hurt.
Oh.
Or let me show you a better way to do that spreadsheet so it's more accurate. It's constructive. It assumes the person wants to do well, but maybe needs some help or a reminder.
And negative discipline.
That's the sanction. That's the stick to force compliance when the coaching and reminders have failed. That's you didn't listen to the polite request, so now there is a formal consequence.
The text mentions the hot stove rule. I love this analogy. It's so vivid. Can you explain it for us?
It's a classic management analogy for how negative discipline should work to be effective and, just as importantly, fair.
Okay.
Think about what happens if you touch a red-hot stove. 3 things happen. 1, it burns you immediately.
Right.
It doesn't wait until your annual review next week to burn you. The feedback is instant.
Okay. Immediate feedback. So in management, you address the issue now while the memory is fresh.
Exactly. Don't save up a list of 20 errors for 6 months.
Got it. What's the second thing?
2, the stove burns consistently. It doesn't matter if you touch it on a Tuesday or a Friday, it burns. It doesn't matter if you are the CEO or the new intern. If you touch the stove, you will get burned.
So consistency. In management, that means you can't let your favorite employee get away with being late while punishing the person you don't like for the exact same thing.
Exactly. That's what breeds resentment and opens you up to claims of discrimination.
Yeah.
And 3, it is impersonal.
What do you mean by that?
The stove doesn't hate you. It doesn't have a personal vendetta against you. It just burns anyone who touches it because that is the nature of the stove. Discipline should be about the act, not the person.
So it's, I am giving you this warning because you were late, not, I am giving you this warning because you were a lazy person and I've had enough of you.
That is the perfect distinction. Immediate, consistent, impersonal. It takes the unhelpful emotion out of it.
But applying consistency requires judgment. Right. The notes give a practical example of this. 3 employees come back late from a pub lunch.
Sounds like a typical Friday in some places.
It might be. But let's look at the context. Employee A is brand new, started a few days ago. Employee B has been warned once before about lateness. And employee C is a repeat offender who has been warned multiple times and is on their final warning,
Right.
using the hot stove rule. Well, that rule says be consistent, but common sense says you have to treat them differently based on their history, right? Or is that a contradiction?
It's not a contradiction if you define the burn correctly. The consistency is that something happens to all of them. You don't ignore any of them just because you're busy.
Yeah.
You address the lateness with all three immediately. That's the consistency. You don't turn a blind eye.
But the severity of the consequence differs.
Exactly. The new employee, employee A, gets an informal, friendly chat. Maybe they didn't know the exact rules. Hey, just so you know, our lunch break is strictly 60 minutes.
Okay.
Employee B, who's been warned before, might get a formal oral warning. And employee C, the repeat offender, is probably getting a final written warning. The process of addressing the issue is consistent, but the sanction scales with the offense history.
So consistency means we address lateness every single time, not we fire everyone who is 1 minute late regardless of the context.
Precisely. That's where the manager earns their paycheck in, applying that judgment fairly.
Let's talk about that escalation of sanctions. You mentioned oral and written warnings. What is the standard process?
Usually it follows a clear path. First is the oral warning. This is a formal conversation, but it's the first step on the ladder. It's recorded on their HR file.
So it's not just a casual chat. It's I am giving you a formal verbal warning.
Correct. The next step up is a written warning. This is a formal letter on paper, often signed by the employee to acknowledge receipt. It stays on your record for a specific period, often 6 or 12 months.
And after that?
After that comes the final written warning.
And the final written warning is basically saying one more strike and you're out.
Yes. It usually states very clearly that any future infringements will result in dismissal or perhaps demotion. It is the final chance to turn things around.
Speaking of out, let's move to section 5.7. Dismissal and redundancy. People often use these terms interchangeably. I got let go, I got fired, but legally they are very, very different beasts, aren't they?
Completely different animals, and confusing them can get a company into a lot of trouble.
So what's the core difference?
Dismissal is personal. It is about you, the employee. Your performance was not good enough, or you engaged in misconduct. Essentially, you failed in some way.
Ouch.
Redundancy, on the other hand, is about the role. It has nothing to do with your personal performance.
The role.
Yes. The legal definition is that the requirement of the business for employees to do work of a particular kind has ceased or diminished.
So even if you are the best widget maker in the entire world, if the factory stops making widgets, your role as a widget maker is redundant.
Exactly. It's not your fault. The job has disappeared.
So redundancy is it's not you, it's me. And dismissal is it's definitely you.
Huh. That's a very good way to remember it, yes.
What are the legal duties around redundancy? Because companies do try to abuse this, don't they? They use redundancy as an excuse to get rid of people they just don't like.
They do, and that is illegal. For a redundancy to be genuine and fair, consultation is mandatory. You have to talk to the employees who are at risk or their representatives.
And do what?
You have to explain why the redundancies are necessary, and you have to look for alternatives. Can we move them to a different department? Can we retrain them? You can't just walk in on Monday and lock the doors. And crucially, the selection for redundancy must be fair and objective.
The notes mention LIFO, last in, first out.
That's a common method because it's objective and easy to defend. The newest people go first. It rewards loyalty. But it's not the only way. You could use a skills matrix, keeping the people with the most critical skills for the future. The key is that the criteria can't be discriminatory.
What would be an example of that?
You can't say, we're making all the older people redundant just because they're more expensive. That's blatant age discrimination. Or you can't say, we're making all the part-timers redundant if most of your part-time staff are women, as that could be indirect sex discrimination.
It's a minefield. And what about dismissal? We talked about the ACAS process. What makes a dismissal legally fair?
It has to be for a fair reason. The law sets out a few, like capability, meaning you can't do the job, conduct, meaning you broke the rules, or redundancy. But, and this is the big exam pitfall, even if the reason is fair, if the procedure you followed is unfair, the dismissal itself becomes unfair.
Wait, say that again. So if I catch an employee stealing from the till red-handed and I fire them on the spot without an investigation or a meeting or a right to appeal,
They might win a claim against you for unfair dismissal.
even though I know for a fact they stole,
Even though you know they stole. The tribunal might say, yes, you were right that they stole, but you were wrong in how you fired them. The principle of natural justice requires that everyone knows the case against them and have a right to reply. You can't be judge, jury, and executioner in a 5-minute conversation by the tills.
That is such a crucial distinction. Procedural fairness is just as important as the moral reason.
In the eyes of the law, it's often more important. The process protects the truth.
Okay, we've covered the hard stuff. The laws, the rules, the systems. We've been the person with the clipboard for a while now.
We have.
Now let's talk about the invisible glue that holds it all together, or fails to. Section 5.8, Organizational Culture.
This is where we move from what we might call hard controls, rules, key cards, warning letters, to soft controls.
And the classic definition of culture from the notes is the way we do things around here.
It is. It's the shared beliefs, the values, the unwritten rules, the norms. And as a control mechanism, it is incredibly powerful, often more so than any rule book. The theorist William Ucci called this clan control.
Clan control. Like a family or a tribe.
Exactly like a tribe. In a high-trust culture, a strong clan, you don't need a rule book for everything. Social pressure and shared values are what drive performance.
How does that work?
If everyone on your team always stays late to finish a critical project because they genuinely care about the quality of the work, you don't need a time clock. You don't need a manager screaming at them. They do it because they don't want to let the clan down.
The sources compare the Eden Project to gnats. This is a great tale of two projects. Can you tell us about that?
It's a fantastic comparison.
Yeah.
The Eden Project, the huge biomes down in Cornwall, was an incredibly complex construction job, a huge success.
And why was that?
The sources attribute this success to the relationships in the culture. There was high trust between the client and the construction joint venture. They shared a common vision. When problems inevitably arose, they solved them together. They viewed it as a partnership, not a battle.
And gnats.
The National Air Traffic Services Project. A complete contrast. It was plagued with problems. Legal battles, huge delays, massive cost overruns.
And the culture there.
The culture was adversarial.
Yeah.
It was all about the contracts and the penalty clauses. It was, you missed a deadline, so I'm suing you. You changed the specs slightly, so I'm charging you an extra $1 million.
So instead of focusing on solving the problem, they were just focused on fighting over the blame.
Exactly. And the lesson here for any student or manager is that your culture will determine whether your formal control system works or fails. A perfect set of MBOs and rules in a toxic culture will just lead to people finding ever more creative ways to cheat the system.
So Section 5.9 looks at influences on culture. If culture is so powerful and so important, where does it come from? Can we actually control it, or does it just happen?
It's very hard to control directly. You can't just write a memo saying, as of Monday, we now have a happy and innovative culture.
If only.
It doesn't work like that. But you can influence it. And the single biggest influencer by far is leadership.
The shadow of the leader. What they do matters more than what they say.
Infinitely more. Leaders set the tone. If the CEO cuts corners on safety to save a buck, no amount of posters in the hallway about safety first will make the workers behave safely. They watch what the leader does, not what the leader says.
Actions speak louder than memos. Every time.
Always. Another huge influence is diversity and equity. How does the organization treat different groups? Is there genuine fairness? If people feel the system is rigged, if the boss's nephew always gets the promotion over the more qualified candidate, the culture becomes cynical and distrustful.
And the organizational values, are they just nice words on a poster in reception, or are they actually lived every day?
That's the real test. And there's an exam pitfall here that I really need to warn you about.
Go for it.
In the E2 exam, students so often ignore the soft side. They get laser focused on the numbers, the steps of the MBO process, the specific Hasawa rules. But you must consider culture. If an exam question asks you to analyze why a new control system failed, the answer is very often found in the culture, not in the spreadsheet.
That is a pro tip right there. Don't ignore the soft side. It's the context for everything else.
It's often the hardest part for an organization to get right, which makes it the most valuable to understand.
So we've been on quite a journey today. I mean, we started with the high-level definition of control, walked through the negotiation of MBO, got very legalistic with HASA and ACS, disciplined some hypothetical employees, and ended up discussing the whole vibe of the Eden Project.
It really shows that control is a spectrum. It's not one single thing.
So let's do a reflective summary. How do we synthesize all of this for the listener?
I think the best way to view performance management is as a three-legged stool.
Okay, I'm visualizing a stool. What are the three legs?
Leg one is structure. It's your rules, your laws, your Hasawa policy, your disciplinary procedures. You need the hard lines, the boundaries.
Got it. The rule book.
Leg two is agency. That's your MBO. That's giving people ownership and a say in their own targets, treating them like adults who want to achieve something.
So that's the internal motivation part.
And leg three is environment. That's your culture. That's the trust, the shared values, the clan control.
And if you're missing one of those legs,
The whole stool falls over. You can have a great trusting culture, but if you have no safety rules, structure, people get hurt. You can have the strictest rules in the world, but if you treat people like robots and don't involve them, no agency, they'll disengage and leave. And you can have great targets and rules, but if the culture is toxic, environment, people will just game the system.
it's all about getting that balance right.
Always. It's a dynamic balance.
Before we wrap up, let's give the listeners some really specific E2 exam guidance based on this chapter. You mentioned the unfair dismissal procedural trap. Are there any other classic scenarios they should look out for?
Yes. The exam absolutely loves scenarios where a manager acts emotionally or impulsively.
A hot stove gone wrong.
Exactly. Classic is a manager firing someone on the spot for being rude to a customer. Or a manager who changes a salesperson's commission targets halfway through the year without telling them because the company isn't doing well.
Or a manager who tells the team to ignore a safety hazard just to meet a critical deadline.
All perfect examples.
And the student's job in that situation.
Your job is to be the calm, professional voice of reason. You must identify the specific procedural errors. You can't just write, "That was mean," or "That was unfair."
You have to be more technical.
You have to say, "That summary dismissal violated the ACAS Code of Practice regarding the right to an investigation and the right to be accompanied." Or, "That unilateral change to targets violated the principles of MBO because the target was not agreed jointly and was not attainable."
Be specific. Use the terminology from the chapter.
Quote the principles. Explain why the manager was wrong using the frameworks we've discussed today. That is what gets you the marks.
Fantastic advice. One final thought for the listener to take away with them.
We often think of control as a restriction, as a brake. But I want you to imagine a car without any brakes. How fast would you be willing to drive it? Yeah.
I wouldn't drive it at all. Or maybe 5 miles an hour. Very carefully.
Exactly. Brakes, which are a control system, are what allow you to drive fast. They are what allow you to go places safely. Good organizational control isn't about stopping people. It's about enabling them to move fast and take sensible risks because they and you know where the boundaries are. It's about freedom within a framework.
I love that. Control enables speed. That is a great place to leave it. Thank you so much for breaking all this down with us today.
My pleasure. It's a great discussion.
And to our listener, good luck with your studies. Go and review those big 5 safety duties, memorize the steps of MBO, and we'll catch you in the next deep dive.
Goodbye.
See you next time.